Hey, how you guys doing? This is Imam Gareth Bryant, and we are here at the Through the Spectacles of Faith. My co-host, Giannis Imperi, unfortunately is not joining us, but shout out to him. Hopefully he'll be here for the next episode. We have a special guest today, and we plan on having a very interesting discussion about religion, spirituality, geopolitics. So without further ado, my guest, want to introduce yourself?
Yes, sir. First of all, thank you for having me here. My name is Ashriel Moore. I'm a member of the African Hebrew Israelite community in Dimona, Israel, and an ambassador for the African Diaspora Collective, which is the presence of the African people in Israel, which is approximately 500,000 people, which people are not familiar with, they don't know, and they don't even know that there is such a large presence of African Americans in Israel, which is, by the way, the largest concentration of African Americans anywhere in the world outside of the United States of America. So I'm part of that community, and I'm happy to be able to share perspectives on Israel and also on our faith and geopolitics in that region, so that our people could be able to have a better understanding of what's taking place there from and through our lens as people who are actually boots on the ground there.
I mean, I guess my first question would be, how many, how did so many Afro-Americans get there in the first place?
And you know, in the 1960s, our leader, teacher, and guide, His Excellency Ben Ami, he had a vision that it was time to leave America. Because during that period of time, you know, in America, things were hot. You had the riots, you had Martin Luther King, you had Malcolm X, you had the Black Panthers, you had the Nation of Islam, you had all of these organizations and people who were thinking that America is definitely not the place for us to be. You know, it was a reawakening at that point in time, saying that we've experienced so much here in America, and at one point or another, it'll come time for us to leave, to go back to where we came from. And you had those people who were talking about the Back to Africa movement. But for us, it wasn't just back to Africa. It was back to our ancestral homeland, which we trace our roots and our lineage back to, which is Israel. And so most people don't even recognize Israel as part of Africa, but we recognize Israel as part of Africa, as part of, who said, it was somebody who said it greatly, I remember his name, but Israel is northeastern Africa, not only geographically, but also geologically, because it sits on the African tectonic plate. It's also Hebrew, is, by the way, an Afro-Semitic language. Our culture is a culture that developed from the people who were the originals to that land, which were Canaanites, who we know to be Hamites, who we know to be black people, and also the children of Israel, Israelites, right? Children of Israel were developed in Egypt, and then made that move to Israel from Egypt, and then established themselves there. So we're talking about us, by the way. And so at that point, we had understood, okay, well, we're not just going back to Israel, we're going all the way back to where we trace our roots back to, and that'll be Israel. And so we established ourselves there, and we established a community there. Now, it was it was a challenge, though, right? Because in the 1960s, nobody was thinking about the fact that some black people from America could somehow, some way be part of the house of Israel, the children of Israel. Because the only thing that people knew beforehand was that you had, and even today still, predominantly when you talk about Jews, when you talk about Israelites, when you talk about Israel, when you talk about Judeans, the first people that come into your mind are people, Ashkenazi people, right? The ones that you see with the yarmulkes and all black and white or whatever. The Hasidim, yeah. Right? But nobody's thinking about us. So when we came there, they were like, okay, well, we don't know that you all are, but we also don't know that you are not. So we'll accept you all right now for the meantime until we could be able to then go and corroborate any of what you said. And then later on, it was like, okay, well, we couldn't find no information to be able to confirm that you all are part of the house of Israel. So as a result of that, we are not only going to not allow you to remain in Israel, we're going to revoke your citizenship, your status, and then now you got to go.
So you became like a stateless people.
We became a stateless people, persona non grata. We then weren't able to have access to any of the institutions in Israel. And so what we did was we built our own institutions. We built our own school. We built our own institution of higher learning. We built our own academies. We created our own internal jobs. We built our own natural birthing center, which approximately 1,000 children were born there since then, since 1970s up until now.
So you guys basically have your own ethnocentric census.
We created our own community. We call it our own community, that we are fully self-sufficient.
So it's like the Tulsa of
it's like Tulsa of Israel, basically. Right. So we don't need assistance from the outside. Obviously we welcome it, right? If anybody is able to assist us with continue to build, but a lot of what we did there, we were actually it's self-sustaining, and we're relying on our people here still in America, right? Because we also established small branches all over America. Satellite communities all over America. So you had in Atlanta, and you had in D.C., and you had in Chicago, and you had it here in New York, and you had it in L.A.
Do those satellite communities still exist?
They do, but not as strong as they were a long time ago.
Is that because so many of those people from those satellite communities vacated to?
A significant amount of them went to Israel.
Gotcha.
So you got about 3,000 of us. Initially in the 1960s, you had 100 and some that came up, but then now we're about 3,000, and people don't really want to be in America anymore. They're like, let me find somewhere else. And so the
niggas is trying to get in their ass kicked.
They don't want this no more. They don't. And so they were saying also that if we can't get to Israel, because they made it so that black people can't be able to migrate to Israel like that anymore. And so the next best option for us was Ghana. And so from the year of return in 2019, we're like, okay, well, the 400 years of slavery, the curses from 1619 up until 2019 is up. So now it's time for us to now start moving back to the continent. So yeah, no problem. We'll establish ourselves in Ghana. If they don't want us in Israel, we'll establish ourselves in Ghana. So up until now. So now you have about probably 1,000 and some people in Ghana.
Since you mentioned that, how many people in Israel right now are even privy of relocating again from Israel to Ghana? Or are there people who are willing to say, like, yo, fuck that, we just gonna weigh it out, we just gonna thug it out?
No, look, because we've already established ourselves there. I mean, we're talking about a fifth generation now,
right?
So we are fully immersed in I was telling you earlier that English is not even my first language.
Right.
Hebrew is my first language.
Right.
I
speak really English, surprising because you don't speak with a foreign accent at all.
Because a lot of that come from home,
right?
But and one of the things that was so important for us is that
Do you
we
speak
put
Yiddish as well, or just Hebrew?
No, just Hebrew. I understand Arabic as well, and I understand a bit of Russian, because you have Arabs, and you have Russians, and you have all these people there. You have a pretty diverse community there.
Arabic and Hebrew are sister languages anyway.
Oh, they close, very close. So and then you hear it often, because 20% of the Israeli society is Arab.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And so you hear it often. And by the way, the most consistent name in Israel, the most prevalent name in Israel is Arabic. Is an Arabic name. Is Muhammad. By the way.
I mean, that's the most popular name in human history. Right?
But in Israel, but you wouldn't think that's the most prevalent name, the most popular name in Israel.
There are like Muslim Palestinians who have Israeli citizenship.
Yeah.
There's Muslim Palestinians who are part of the IDF. And that's something that people don't know.
I wouldn't say Muslim Palestinians. I would say Arab Israelis. The reason why I say Arab Israelis is because within the Israeli society, you have 20% of people who identify as Arab, right? But then not all of them identify as Palestinians. So, for example, you have the Druze community.
Right.
You have the Bedouin community. You have the Afro-Palestinian community.
Right.
So all these people, they don't necessarily identify as Palestinians, because the identity, the nationalistic identity of Palestinians is something that only developed in 1964. But prior to that, everybody who resided on that territory, even during the Ottoman time, during the Mamluks time, during the Crusades and all of that, they identified as Palestinians because the region, the name of the region, Hadrian, well, he was the one who actually changed the name from Judea to Palestine. So whoever resided there, Jews, Arabs, Muslim, you were Palestinian. Right, but then after the establishment of the state of Israel, then it's like, okay, now we have another identity. There is a state of Israel, and so whoever is part of that state of Israel is then called an Israeli. So you have the Arab Israelis, you have the African Hebrew Israelites who are also Israelis. You have the Jewish Israelis. So all these people are actually Israelis, like here in America, right? You have Chinese Americans, Japanese Americans, Afro Americans, Irish Americans. So that's something that's very out of the ordinary. It's new, for people who don't really know too much about the social construct of Israel and how it's built up. So I would say
you mentioned earlier, you mentioned that there does exist a caste system.
Oh, absolutely. And the caste system, it's funny because just last year, prior to the current war with Gaza and Hamas, between Israel and Hamas, in Israel, there for a year straight, there were people who were going out and protesting. You had the protesters who were saying, because they were talking about the judicial overhaul, they were talking about the political corruption and all these things in Israel.
That put a lot of fire under the feet of Netanyahu.
Not only Netanyahu, but the government as well. But what they were saying basically is that, okay, look, one side is saying that there's a major issue in Israel because there is a caste system and there's two Israels. So there's the Israel of those people who are benefiting from Israel, because they have a stronghold on all of the centers of power, like in the IDF.
It's a political monopoly, basically.
And then you have those people who have been struggling for years. So that'll be mainly the North Africans and the Arab migrants and all of those people who you kind of consider Mizrahi.
Right.
They were kind of sick of it. So like, okay, well, what we need to do is, in order for us to be able to enjoy a lot of what you all are enjoying or have been enjoying for so long, the system has to change. And so when they wanted the system to change, it's like, whoa, if we change the system, then the people who are in power right now, they won't be able to continue to enjoy it. Now they have to share some of that power with the lower caste system. It's like, no, we're not going to do that.
Well, since you mentioned that, right? Objectively, what's the difference between living in Israel and living in the United States? And or was that even a better alternative to move from the United States to Israel? Because objectively, it seems like y'all go through the same shit that we going through over here in the United States.
Black people go through the same stuff all over the world.
Right.
All over the world.
Right.
So it's nothing different. But I would say that the reason why we actually went back to Israel was more so a spiritual move. Right? And it was directed by Providence. So it wasn't nothing that we were just actually looking for a better life, because the majority of the people who actually migrated back to Israel, they had a pretty good life here in America. For example, my parents, my mother's from Miami, my father's from Chicago, right? They got up and they left 2-story homes and cars and money and good jobs.
So in other words, they was all right.
They were more than all right. They were more than all right. And they got up and they left all of that behind. They didn't even look back. Only now did my mother say to herself, like, if I would have kept those homes, right? Okay, no problem. I'll go back to America. I'll go to Israel. But if I would have kept those homes back in America, how much better off we may have been had we done that?
I mean, because obviously that would have been a revenue of. That would have been a stream of generational wealth.
But we didn't think about that because, when people were directed by the internal.
Sometimes when people have a vision, they become blindsided.
So they wasn't looking at nothing else. Right. It's like, we just need to get out of America.
Right.
We don't enjoy nothing. Well, yeah, you had all the physical trinkets, right? But it's like your soul was gone.
Right.
It's like America took so much away from you over this 400-year period of time, and then now you're still fighting for fundamental things like voting rights and let's get out of here.
Things that people shouldn't even have to fight for.
That should be obvious.
Right.
That should be obvious. But not to say that we didn't experience that also in Israel, because all the way up until the early 2000s, we didn't have access to the institutions of Israel. We didn't have access to the healthcare system. We didn't have access to, the schooling system. We weren't able to work. So we had to establish all of those things within our community to be able to provide those opportunities to our people from the community, because we couldn't depend on other people from the outside.
So you guys were basically a Gaza outside of Gaza.
Ways. We didn't have access like we needed to.
No, that's what I mean. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Well,
in terms of denial of basic human rights or privileges that everyone else in the country has,
so
aside from you guys.
We didn't have that. We didn't have that. And instead, we could look at it two ways, right? We could say, okay, well, because we don't have that, then we can become militant and we can fight the system, but in such a way where it'll be more harmful for us, because we'll be so focused on fighting the other that we wouldn't have time to be able to build for ourselves.
Right.
So we're like, okay, well, what we'll do, we'll take all that energy, all of that time, and we'll develop internally. So we'll build our own school. So y'all don't want us in your schools? That's okay. We thank you very much. We'll build our own schools. We'll put our own curriculums in there. We'll teach what we need to, and we'll provide the basic needs for our children to be able to actually have something that they could, they can go into the real world and actually make money immediately, not going through 12 years of school and then you don't get nothing afterwards.
And you still end up in debt. So basically, everything that you've described is literally what in the United States we've studied concerning what apartheid and what segregation is.
Well, I wouldn't say there's so much apartheid and segregation there. The reason why, because you have other people who are also of African ancestry, Ethiopian Jews, and you also have asylum seekers. You have African American Jews, Afro-Palestinians or whatever. Who I mean, some they enjoy the privileges or whatever. But for us, it was because we see. Let me tell you something about Hebrew Israelites. The point of contention, primarily with the Jewish community, has always been that they believe that we are appropriating their culture. Right. We have appropriated their identity.
So they're accusing you guys.
They're accusing us of being culture vultures, right? So it's like, I'm not going to give y'all nothing. Y'all are trying to X us out of history. Y'all saying that we don't exist. Now it's never been, our issue. We've never said that. We don't determine for other people who they are. Right. We say who we are, right? Whatever you say you are, I'm not. Look, whether it's wrong or it's right, I'm not about to argue with you about who you say you are. Right. I'm trying to let you know who I am. Right. And so that was a point of contention because it's like, okay, well, I know who you are, but do you really recognize our identity as Israelites, as part of the house of Israel, as people who made it into the diaspora because of the dispersion from Israel? And
so let me ask you, so because of like the denial of the Israeli government and also like the Israeli high court, the religious high court, whatever, is the reason how and why they're not allowing you to absorb into like the Jewish diasporic whip, right? Is that exclusively because of religious grounds, ethnocentric grounds, or a combination of both?
Definitely a combination of both. Because the Ethiopian community, those who arrived in Israel in the 1970s, there was a rabbi called Rabbi Ovadia Yosef, right? That he signed off on them as saying that they are actual Jews.
I heard about that.
In 1974. Yeah. But even though he signed off on that, the Minister of Interior in Israel, who's responsible, still wasn't going for it. Right. It's like, okay, well, the rabbi said it. So, and we don't care about what he says. That's something that's religious. It has nothing to do with what we say.
With the state.
Nothing to do with the state.
So in other words, is to be frank, as far as the state goes, they was like, okay, them niggas can stay where they at, basically.
Point blank, period. Point blank, period.
So according to them, they didn't care how Jewish they were.
Made no difference.
They was like, they niggas, they could stay over there.
Made no difference to them. Right. And so as a result of that, I'm looking at these. They consider them as Jews, right? But they're experiencing some of the same thing we're experieing.
Quite literally.
So it's like, of course, this it has a lot to do with our
anti-blackness
ethnicity.
101.
Absolutely. Right. I was saying to you earlier that this anti-blackness exists all over the world. Yeah. Black people, wherever we are in the world, we experience some of the same stuff. Yeah. And however you try to cut it up.
You can go to the caste system in India, since you mentioned the caste system. It's no mistake that a large swath of the majority of the Dalit class, which are considered the untouchables, the lowest caste officially in India, is no accident that most of those Dalit people are the same complexions as people like you and I. It's no accident.
Wherever we are in the world.
And that was more intensified as a result of British colonization.
You could also look in Saudi Arabia. By
the way, been to Saudi Arabia.
Yeah, so you know how it is out there, right?
In spite of the fact that the average Saudi looks like people like you and I. Like the times I've been to Saudi Arabia, I can't even count how many times I've seen a bunch of Muhammad ibn Tyrones. Like, it's common. And those same dudes will still call you nigga.
Crazy. That's crazy. But that exists all over the world.
The first king of Saudi Arabia was my complexion. The first one. And they'll still look at you like you nobody because you're dark skinned.
And because you're not from there.
Right.
And because you're not Muslim some.
Yeah, that's true too. Yeah.
And that's something.
Xenophobia is something that it's always been a part of the human narrative for a long time. Yeah. And even in our Islamic tradition, Muhammad, peace be upon him, he said there's 4 characteristics of ignorance that their nation will never abandon. Literally 2 out of those 4 things deal directly with what we're talking about right now. Xenophobia. Those who pretend that they're better than others.
Yeah.
And those who shit on other people because they claim that they're lower than them.
So that's something that exists in Israel as well.
Yeah.
And you wouldn't know that because to the outside, when you're looking at Israel from the outside,
it's
right?
a very pretty dolled up perception.
No, I wouldn't say it's so pretty because people know about what the Palestinians are experiencing in Israel, right? It's good. I mean, it's good.
You still have people who pretend that doesn't exist.
Yeah, of course. Of course you do.
Yeah.
You know, but I'm not the one to pretend that don't exist.
Right.
You know, I'm not about to just ignore, so many millions of people, who've been there, and my idea has always been, and one of the things that we're really involved in Israel is trying to see how we could be able to work from the grassroots level
right.
to be able to establish an alternative to what we inherited.
Right.
A lot of what's going on in Israel, I wasn't there beforehand. I mean, I only came to this earth 33 years ago.
Right.
But whatever happened beforehand, I can't account for that.
Right.
No, and neither can you.
Right.
So what we can do is now we could lay down a foundation going forward.
We're just the
we
social
inherited
inheritors of it.
We received it.
Right.
Now we have two ways we can handle this. Either we can keep this going so that we can pass this on to the next generation,
right.
and we can make excuses for why this had to continue to go on like this.
Or we try to do something about it.
Or we can try to do something else, right? We can try to do something else about it. Now you have people who are really, because of their extremism, they're more interested in continuing it because they want to make a point.
They want to keep the lie alive.
They want to keep the lie alive, but they want to make a point. They want to show that, I'm not going to let my forefathers down.
Right.
So if right now I come up with a solution that could be able to then put this all aside and allow us to work moving forward, it's like, okay, well, I compromised.
Yeah.
I gave up. I was the slouch. I was the one who dropped the ball.
Because being humane, it scares and confuses people.
It does.
Certain people, they actually find joy in being a tyrant.
I mean, being extreme has always been the reason why the extremists are the ones who have the loudest voices, right? Is because they are willing to do anything
for anything.
Yeah. Right? They have no problem with that.
Yeah.
But it's the ones who are more moderate in the middle saying, okay, well, maybe it's a better way to go about it. But that don't sound really sexy. You're looking for the ones that when you watching TV, if somebody come on TV and on the news and they start talking about the greatness of the world and how everything is coming together, it's like, okay, well, I'm not going to watch that anymore. But as soon as they start talking about the wars and the contention and how bad things are,
because controversy is the best.
Controversy is the best one.
It's just like somebody presents you 2 cars, right? You got a Honda Civic that actually runs well, right? But you got a Lambo that don't have an engine.
People will go with the Lambo.
People go with the Lambo.
That's crazy.
In spite of the fact that the Lambo don't have the engine. That's literally how our world is.
That what you call that is social architecture.
Oh yeah, definitely. Social engineering.
And
social media has made these things even worse.
Most people are getting their information off social media.
And that's a problem.
That's how, you become a social media doctor in this world today by looking at social media videos, and you would then build your perspectives on complex issues based on some videos that you saw on social media. Now
not even so complex. Let's say, for example, now you have this trend of people saying the word demure. Literally, prior to 2014, the average person didn't even know what the word demure meant.
Had no idea.
They never heard of the word before.
Had no idea, but it's trendy.
Yeah,
it's trendy. Whatever is trendy, whatever is going today, then we'll join on to that because nobody no. It used to be a time where if you were the trendsetter, then you was the man.
Right.
But today, if you're a trendsetter, it's like, well, that's not really, that's not in. That's not the exciting narrative at this point. It's like, nah, I'll go with the one that's, until that's out of whack, and then and then we'll go with something else.
Right.
But that's just how it is all over the world. I mean, the social engineering all over the world has created robots.
Yeah.
And these robots now,
we think we smart.
You think you're smart.
And we're really not as smart as we think.
Have no idea.
Yeah.
They got your mind in such a way where now you're operating, they've conditioned people.
The concept of the algorithm.
To operate.
Algorithm
you're just operating according to how the system built you.
You're just following a script and you don't even realize.
You have no idea. I said to somebody the other day when we were talking about the concept of death.
Right.
I was saying that you don't have to be, your body doesn't have to be literally dead and in the ground for you to be dead. You could be walking around a zombie, a dead person. You have no idea because your level of you're not conscious. You're unconscious, and you're now being directed by others, and you have no idea about that. You are walking dead. You're a zombie in this world today, and we have so many walking dead people where they have no idea that they're dead because they believe that death only comes when your body stops to operate.
Allah actually says that in the Quran. Allah speaks about those who ignore their signs, ignore their revelation, that their bodies are alive, but their hearts are dead. Meaning spiritually we're dead.
Dead.
Yeah.
Dead. Walking around, the walking dead. That's what we call the walking dead. You're unconscious. Yeah. You're walking around, you're unconscious, you have no idea what's going on in the world. And you know, sometimes you see people where they're like, man, that person, like, I don't know, he look like something wrong with him. I don't know, he wobbling and walking crazy, and that's how people are actually walking today. But you have no idea.
Even people who are sober.
Yeah.
Sometimes you'll see someone, you be like, yo, are they smoking that shit? And they could be completely sober.
Right.
But like you said, you look into their eyes.
Right.
You know how that famous cliche saying, the eyes are the window to the soul.
Yes,
There's a lot of truth and honesty to that. You look at a person, you be like, yo, this person is not there.
No, they're not with us.
Spiritually, they're not there spiritually. Yeah, that's real.
Because the spirit, that was one of the reasons why we went back to Israel, because we wanted to also reconnect with our spiritual Holy Father. And for us, it was like, okay, we can't do that in this land. There's a verse in the Bible to say, how could we sing the Lord's song in a strange land? We couldn't do that. We couldn't do that here. We couldn't be who we are supposed to be, who we're called to be here, because as far as the American system is concerned, we're always 3/5 of a human being. We're always, the lowest class. We're always niggers. And I mean, Jay-Z said it, rich nigga, poor nigga, still nigger.
I'll be honest with you. I'd rather be a nigga than Native American. Because trust me, Native American reservations are worse than any projects.
Terrible.
Trust me.
Terrible. I mean, just to think, that idea of 95% of the people being killed off, the last 5% being put out in reservations. Now they have the land back movement and all the people who are saying that, we need to restore our ancestral lands. We want those back. And people are like, look, we have the same claim to this land that you do. We've been here for 400 years or 500 years. Our ancestors came and developed everything that you have around. There's no way in the world we're going to give this back to you. Like, we built this all up, and now we're going to give it to you.
We stole it from you.
We stole it from you. We built it up, and now we're going to give it back to you after all these years with our institutions, with the development of the land, with all these things. How can we ever do that? But with African Americans,
it's like somebody home invade your crib, kick you out. They do all this interior design,
and then you come back and you want it back.
Yeah,
I'm not giving this back to you. I have the same stake in this.
You can have a room in the basement.
Maybe.
You can move in the attic.
But we can't give you the whole place back.
Right.
I mean, that's crazy. What do you expect for us to do? What you expect us to just get up and just leave now? I mean,
go back to Europe?
That's crazy, ain't it? That's And I had somebody to tell me that my existence, our existence in Israel, is we actually residing on stolen territory, and we need to go back to where we came from. Now, besides the fact that I was born and raised in Israel,
right.
And my parents, they came from America.
Do you have Israeli citizenship,
I do.
by the way? Okay.
I do. I have American citizenship, and I have Israeli citizenship.
Cool. Okay.
Right.
So, since you mentioned that, how many persons from your community actually have Israeli citizenship or dual citizenship versus those who are classified as stateless?
Right now, I would say probably out of 3,000 people that we have in Israel, maybe 500 to 600 have Israeli citizenship. The other ones
only 500?
Maybe.
That's a very small number.
That's a very small number.
You said in comparison to what you mentioned, 500,000 there?
No, I'm talking about specifically about my community, the Hebrew Israelite community.
Yeah, no, that's what I mean. Yeah.
Oh, you talking about the whole 500,000?
No, I'm talking about the whole 500,000.
Oh, man. All the Ethiopian community, it's about 171,000 of them. They have Israeli citizenship.
All of them?
All of them.
Okay.
All of them.
Okay.
Whoever is here, they have Israeli citizenship.
Gotcha.
Then you have the Afro-Palestinians.
Yeah.
Who they don't have Israeli citizenship.
Yeah.
Then you have the Afro-Bedouins, who majority of them have Israeli citizenship. Then you have the asylum seekers from Sudan and from Eritrea who fled the wars there. they are fighting to get asylum in Israel.
Right.
Israel don't even really want to grant them asylum. Then you have the Hebrew Israelite community, who out of us, you probably have about 500 who have Israeli citizenship, and then the other ones are recognized as permanent residents, and then you have those who are stateless. So you have about, let's say, 200 who are stateless.
Right.
And Israel is trying to deport them back to America. Now, you can't deport them back to America because they're stateless. They don't have American citizenship.
Right.
They're fourth generation in Israel, born and raised to parents who were born and raised in Israel.
That's wild.
You see? And you want them to come back to America.
That's like the United States trying to deport me to Senegambia. Like, dude, I'm the nigga. You can't deport me. Are you serious?
You go back to where, like, how? Like, how does that even work?
This actually happened along those lines. I think this happened when Obama was president. They tried to deport an Afro-American guy who was living in Arizona. They tried to deport him to Mexico. Keep in mind, this guy was Afro-American.
How'd that work?
It was just wild. Keep in mind, this guy was Afro-American. He'd never been to Mexico before. I think he had some mental issues, something like that, and they tried to use that against him to try to, quote unquote, deport him to Mexico, which is wild.
To Mexico, though.
That's crazy. That's insanity.
That's insanity.
Like, it's just wild. And you just mentioned about the Afro-Bedouins, right? Afro-Bedouin and Afro-Palestinian, those are actually misnomers. The only reason how and why a lot of people are given those monikers of Afro-Bedouin or Afro-Palestinian or Afro-Arab is exclusively because of skin complexion.
I know. And they even say that.
Because a lot of people don't want to admit to the fact that Arab peoples have dark skin. I mean, that's obvious.
I'm talking about,
they're xenophobic against each other.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
But even with them, because see, one thing that the people talk about, and because you have a large community of them in Jericho.
Right.
And Jericho is the oldest city in the world.
Right.
You have a large concentration of them in Jericho, and every time I go up and visit, and we sit down and talk, they actually have their own communities as well.
Yeah.
In Jericho.
Yeah.
Small communities, and what they say is that they are also rejected by the Palestinian Authority and the light-skinned Palestinians.
Of course.
Like, they don't recognize us. It's like, okay, you have Palestinians, and then you have Afro-Palestinians.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like, well, why do you have to identify me as Afro? Am I just not Palestinian, just like you? But just like you said, I mean, it's.
But the irony is that those people, their roots in the region go thousands of years
back.
Yeah,
thousands of years back. And a lot of them still know exactly where their parents came from.
But even the whole concept of what it means to be Palestinian, right? It's a known fact that the average person who's classified as Palestinian is not even ethnically Arab.
No, sir.
That's just a known fact.
No, sir.
Yeah.
But these are things that people don't know.
They don't want to know. It's like I always tell people, apathy is worse than ignorance. Not caring is worse than not knowing. A lot of people just don't want to know these things because they want to keep, like you said, they want to keep those lies alive.
Because it's easier for them to be able to deal with.
Right.
Because now that you know, if you didn't know, then we could be able to excuse you.
Once you
but
know,
when
you're responsible.
You're responsible.
Right.
Right. When you know better, you expect it to do better.
Right.
And so you don't have an excuse now that you know about something that is as important as this. You don't have an excuse now to not be able to. You
don't have a justification to give it a pass.
So you have to now deal with the reality as it is now, because now you're familiar with the reality.
Exactly.
And most people don't want to be familiar with that reality, because then it takes another level of responsibility from you. Now you have to step up to the plate.
Right.
And now when you hear about these things, you have to now be able to articulate them in such a way where you're not ignorant to the situation. Now, whatever you do with it,
that's your choice.
That's your choice.
But at least
you know. At least
right.
at least you're no longer ignorant to it. And they say, I mean, if you want to have something from the black man, put it in the book. And that's terrible.
It's an unfortunate reality.
1 second. Y'all yeah.
Well, at least it wasn't Pornhub, so we good.
Right. It's set for
You don't have to reset that. Keep on rolling. Sorry.
All right.
No, we were just talking about the fact that when you know better, you expect it to be better.
Right, exactly. Yeah. So it's that responsibility, like you said, that responsibility is what us as humans naturally, through human nature, human behavior, we constantly and consistently try to navigate away from. We try to escape. So what would your general holistic message be for Afro peoples in the Western Hemisphere, from Canada to Chile, and just in terms of having some kind of like more insight or better insight in terms of Afro diasporic diasporatic people in
Israel?
Yeah, in the Middle East in general.
In the Middle East in general. Most people in the Western Hemisphere are not even really familiar with their culture and their history.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't expect for them to be all the way over in the Middle East, trying to understand the African diaspora there. But at the least, I could say that we're not. The majority of us are not there because of circumstance, right? Nobody forced us to go there. Nobody's forcing us to remain there.
Right.
We made that move on our own. Right. Those who made Hajj to Mecca and then decided, okay, well, we'll just go over to Jerusalem and then establish ourselves in Jerusalem. Those who came from America looking for a better spiritual connection to our ancestral homeland, opposed to the mundane things that they had experienced here in America. By having, you have all of the trinkets, you have access to all of the flashy things, that you would consider the American dream. Right. But you lost your soul,
Then you have to ask, was it worth it?
Was it worth it?
Right.
That's a good question. I mean, now I give you a couple millions, and I give you the car, and I give you the house, and I give you a good job, but give me your soul in return. That's a bad deal, as far as we're concerned.
Right.
And so,
that's a horrible trade-off.
That's a horrible trade-off.
Yeah.
But as far as my ancestors were concerned, or my forefathers, they said, okay, well, we would be willing to trade in all of what America gave us in terms of the material things to be able to regain our soul. Mm-hmm. So even if that means that we won't have the material things in Israel or in the Middle East or wherever we are in the world, we would be more willing to live on less of the materialistic things, but more of a spiritual and mental preservation of our hearts and our souls and our minds, and allow us to also be the kings of our journey at this point. Right? We
masters of our own destiny.
We want to take that back into our own hands.
Right.
And so, thank you, but no thank you. We don't want. If this is the price that we have to pay,
if that's the price tag attached to it, I'd rather not have it.
We don't want it. No, thank you. So we went back there, and the majority of the people who are there now, they're there because they want to.
Right.
They're there because, and not to say this without trial and error. Not to say that we don't have our own challenges. We have our challenges there as well.
Right.
White supremacy exists all over the world.
Right.
Arab supremacy exists all over the world.
Yeah.
And so it's not that you're just gonna find even throughout Africa, we see how a lot of these European, we know about the European conquest, but we also know about the Arab conquest and it still exists up until this very day. Neocolonialism is
never ended,
alive and kicking.
I mean, even taking into consideration the fact that the vast majority of places on the African continent where people were extracted and human trafficked and sent to different parts of the colonial world, you had African kingdoms and African nations who directly assisted and facilitated the existence of the transatlantic slave trade.
But that's what it's been all along.
Yeah.
It was always that inside man.
Always.
Always that inside man.
And it's a numbers game. It's a money.
It's
like, for example, that movie that came out, Woman King, about the Dahomey people, modern day Benin.
Yeah.
They were some of the most successful, if not the most successful region of Africa pertaining to those who profited from the slave trade. The transatlantic slave trade specifically.
Did you know, in addition to the Dahomey people, you also had those who were from the Ashanti tribes in West Coast on the
Wolof people also. Yeah.
Ghana.
Yeah.
The Dambi people, you had the Igbo people also from Nigeria.
Yeah.
And a significant amount of those people who actually were taken from the western coast of Africa and brought to the Western Hemisphere, they actually identified as Israelites, right? You have even people who, and a lot of information that was shared from those people who remain, because everybody wasn't taken the West Coast.
There's
and
actually a
brought
book I
enslaved.
think they authored. It's called The Jews of Africa or something like that.
You have the Jews of Africa.
I think it's specifically about the Igbo people.
So you have the one who was talking about the Igbo people.
Yeah.
You have the one who was talking about. You have a book that talks about the Hebrewisms of West Africa.
Yeah.
Then you have you have an autobiography by one of the Igbo brothers who were actually taken to slavery when he was 14. He managed to buy himself out of slavery and then migrated to the UK. And he was just given, an account on what he had experienced, throughout this entire period of time. And then you also have what the slave voyages, right? That they kind of break down the names,
chronicles, right?
And the names of the people who were taken, because when we look at the
Portuguese were actually masters at that. In the National Archives in the capital of modern day Angola, because at least 50% of the Africans human trafficked from Africa sent to the Western Hemisphere, they ended up in Brazil. Yeah, which was like the master colony of Brazil.
Today, the largest concentration of Africans outside of the continent
is in Brazil. Yeah,
I mean that was that was the first spot, and they speak obviously Portuguese. But when you look at the voyages, and what I was saying, that when you watch that video of Shaka Zulu, right, and he was asking about his name, like, what is your name? He was like, my name is Shaka Zulu. He said, no, your name is Toby.
Oh, he's Kunta Kinte.
Oh, Kunta Kinte, my bad. Okay, Kunta Kinte. He was like,
Shaka Zulu wasn't letting nobody enslave him.
Yeah, my bad.
Shaka Zulu was really like that.
Okay, I got it mixed up. So he was asking, what is your name? Right. My name is Kunta Kinte.
Yeah.
No, your name is Toby. So I'm going to whip you, until this much towards death, until you right at the brink. Until you
say, fuck it, I'm Toby.
Accept this new identity, and that's what happened with our people here.
Yeah.
And I read this book by this preacher called John Colcock Jones, right? And what he was talking about was the religious instructions of the Negro, right? And he was saying that one of the things that they wanted to do in order to be able to transform us from who we are into what they wanted us to become, specifically the idea of accepting this identity as Christians, we're going to take the day that you revere, that you see as the holy day, Saturday. We're going to teach you. And then when we're talking about this, always an inside man. Right. We're going to take somebody who seemed to be one of the one of the outstanding people,
one of the good niggas,
one of the good guys, one of the intelligent people. Yeah. We're going to put all this information into him, and then we're going to allow him. We're going to indoctrinate him so he can indoctrinate them. Yeah. And then our hand is kind of out of the story. So
then they could be like, "Oh, we didn't do it. They did it." Right.
This was their own people.
Right.
So that's what happened with our people on the western coast of Africa. Well, it's like, okay, the Europeans like, no, we didn't go into Africa and start to physically bring these people. We made deals.
It's just like the drug trade. They be like, oh yeah, the politicians ain't selling drugs. It was y'all niggas on the block that was selling.
Yeah, it's y'all people. Y'all. Yeah, we know how the drugs got. We're not gonna say how they got into your neighborhood, but we're not selling them to your people. Y'all selling them to your own people. Right. So we're not taking no responsibility for what it is that you all are doing. Right. And that's a great way to be able to cause us to maintain our situation, to remain in our current state of affairs, because now it's like, well, we don't have nobody else to blame but ourselves. But we know that this is not.
But that's only a half truth.
We know that.
Yeah.
But that's the best way to be able to get out of taking responsibility. Them taking responsibility for what we're experiencing.
And they're not going to do that.
Oh, well, absolutely not. Because why should they? I mean, that was part of the plot.
Because they profit off of destruction. Like, for example, everything that you just mentioned about that detailing, that's actually directly and indirectly mentioned via that famous / infamous writing, the Willie Lynch letters.
Yeah.
Because a lot of people, they'll debate as to whether it was really written or whether it was made. It doesn't matter. The fact is that everything in the Willie Lynch letters, that's really what they did to niggas.
That's really what they did.
And it's still working, and it's still happening.
Until this very day.
Yeah.
I mean, it's still working. Yeah. But we're gonna put the light skin against the dark
self-hate,
skin. We're gonna make, because I remember when I was talking about the concept of the crabs in the barrel, right?
Yeah.
Then you got the crabs in the barrel. You have the ones that are climbing up and the ones
dragging them
down.
Yeah.
But they said that you put ants in a barrel, right? You put black ants and, let's say, red ants, right? They'll be okay moving around.
They'll actually help each other.
They'll help each other but then you shake that barrel. Then they start fighting each other internally. Yeah. They have no idea that it was somebody or something or
That
force
fostered
externally
that
that
division.
caused that division
Right.
or whatever.
Like, for example, the gangs in LA, right, and in Chicago, what really fueled the beefs between these gangs was the drug money. Along those bets, if the cocaine era didn't exist, if the crack era didn't exist,
then those beef won't exist.
no, it's not that they wouldn't exist. They wouldn't be as intensified. They wouldn't be so intricately connected to the culture. Because let's be real, in terms of like hip hop culture, rap music culture, you can't separate hip hop culture and rap music from gang culture. It's impossible to separate it at this juncture in terms of the evolution of hip hop culture, the evolution of rap music. It's literally impossible to separate hip hop culture and rap music from gang culture. It's impossible to separate it because of those things. It's just it's just nasty work.
That's interesting because I was just in Atlanta before I came up here.
Yeah.
Because I'm moving around and I'm talking to our people and I'm sharing these perspectives from Israel, right? In regards to, and what he was saying to me, he took me to the hood.
Yeah.
Like I need you to be able to see how how our people are living down here.
Right.
And he was explaining to me, he was saying that the streets, I'm trying to remember how he said it exactly. He said that hip hop influences the world.
Yeah.
The
most emulated and imitated human being in human history is the Afro-American male.
Okay. Then you have the hood that influences hip hop.
Right.
And then you have the streets that influence the hood that influence hip hop that influence the world.
It's a domino effect.
It's a domino effect, but it's coming from us.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I mean, this culture of hip hop, people made it cool. You know what I mean? The whole world want to emulate that. Everybody's listening. Rap music.
I say it all the time. Everybody want to be black until a cop show up.
Everybody want to be black until the cop, or everybody want to be black until they experience what we experience. Like, nah, I'll dress like you. I'll come to your clubs or whatever. I'll maybe sleep with your men, sleep with your women, but I don't want none of how society is treating you all.
Yeah.
I don't want none of that. I want it so long as I could just be able to enjoy what it is that you all are bringing to the table. So I'm cool with black people so long as you're producing good music.
And not just in music, not just in entertainment. For example, even the porn industry operates that way.
Wow.
It's a known fact that the average non-black woman is only sexually attracted to black men because of pornography. If you have a conversation with a woman who's not black, who's not Afro-American, you can tell what type of porn they watch based on the conversations that they have with you. You can tell.
Wow.
Yo, it's
Wow.
It's wild. It's crazy. Yeah.
I didn't know it was a porn industry. I know this. We've always been, black people. One of the things in the minds of women,
in terms of black fetishism.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
That's always been something, in the minds of white women and women from other ethnicities.
Yeah.
Generally, they always viewed us as a sex object.
The whole big black dick.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's a sex object, but
Yeah,
besides that, we
really.
don't want nothing to do with you.
Yeah.
So we can be able to, we'll give you, some of, our trinkets or whatever, just so we can be able to enjoy the sex.
I'll even put out an Obama baby for you, but I'ma still hate you.
But I'm still hate you.
Yeah.
You still you remember who you are. Remember what you are. Sometimes
Know your place,
Our
nigga.
brothers always,
Right.
Unfortunately, and when you climb up to the high levels of society in whatever area it is, sometimes we forget how the society is built in such a way where we could never be able to outgrow our skin color or our identity as how we are being looked at from others.
Kanye West is a classic example.
It'll never happen. Yeah. It'll never happen. I said it. I said it again. Jay-Z
Tiger Woods is a classic example.
Rich nigga, broke
Still
nigga. That's how they see us, and that's how they'll forever see us.
That's one of the best songs that Jay-Z ever made because there's so much truth and honesty to that song. And the truth and the honesty in that song, people conveniently allowed it to fly over our heads. I'd love to continue this conversation, but the niggas who pay us say we gotta go. So with that, hopefully the next time you in town, we could probably do a part 2 of this or something like that. So
yes,
I definitely enjoyed my time with you. This was a great episode to say the least. Yo, yeah, what's your
Oh, so my Instagram is Ashriel Moore.
Okay.
So that'll be ASHRIEL MOORE.
Okay.
And
Don't worry,
TikTok
they'll caption it in the video.
Facebook and all of
yeah.
those things or whatever. But it was definitely an honor and a
It was
pleasure
great.
chopping it up with you, bro.
Definitely great. Great.
Your intellect and that vibrant energy. I can tell that you're dedicated to seeing our people rise. Wherever we are in the world, and to help us be able to understand.
Life is too short to be a failure.
It's way too short. It's way too short. And it's time for us to now start. When they speak about Ezekiel in the Bible and saying that we have to resurrect those dry bones, this is the way it's going to happen. We have to be able to provide that information, that knowledge to our people that could be able to help them to transform their life. Now, whoever don't want it, then that's on you. But we're going to make sure that it's prevalent, that it exists, that it's out there for you to be able to access. And we're going to try and help you to access that. Now, if you decide you're not going to do that, then...
No, it's just like that statement. You can lead a horse to water, you can't make them drink it. But we still got to lead the horse to water.
We still got to lead the horse to water.
It's just like when Allah says in the Quran, Allah says, those who believe pay attention, save yourselves and your peoples from fire. Mm-hmm. Now, that doesn't just mean about the fire of the hereafter. That means the fire of ignorance, the fire of arrogance, the fire of misguidance, all of that. Because all of those things are destructive. So we have an obligation to save ourselves and our peoples from destruction.
And that's what we're doing right now. So this is that episode, and I appreciate you for having me on, bro. And next time I'm in town, I'm definitely coming back.
Definitely. Good having you, man. All right?
Sir.
Good.